Hey sports fans, Neil here with the Fix Yourself channel, and today we are going to clean up around our maple tree and our apple tree. And I know what you're thinking, I don't see any maple tree or apple tree, all I see is a bunch of box elder, and that's true. But we're going to cut that box elder out, and so there's three purposes here. We're going to make it so you can actually see the apple tree and the maple tree. But we're also going to show you in this video two things. First of all, how to get rid of unwanted trees. And the other thing is what to do with them after you cut them down. Now I got another maple right here, surrounded by box elders. Okay, so in fact they're even blocking the light, so they're kind of caused it to grow at an angle like that. So I'm going to cut down the box elder so it can get a little more light, and then I'll put a brace on that maple to kind of pull it up right. And after about a year it should stand up straight on its own. There's the maple we got right there in the center. You can see it's braced up by a fence post there. It actually grew quite a bit in 1 or 2 years it's been there since we transplanted it, but so is everything else that's around it. So I'm going to get rid of all of these scrub trees and just have the maple there. It'll look a lot better. Got a lot of blackberry bushes here. I don't have any shortage of them, so I can take them down. That ain't going to hurt anything. And we also have plenty of box elder trees, so I'm not worried about that. And there's a mulberry tree, and that can go because I don't have any shortage of them either. But if I let all these little kind of weed trees just run wild, you know, my good trees, they'll kind of get choked out. There's the apple tree there. This apple tree's got to be 100 years old. Old as the hills, but it's got plenty of trees growing around it. So I got a lot of stuff to cut down. And what most people do when they do something like that, they end up with having this big, huge pile of brush. And they'll have that setting for months, sometimes even years, you know, letting it dry down. And I'm going to show you how you can take care of getting rid of a whole bunch of green, freshly cut trees without having to have a big pile of brush sitting in your yard for who knows how long. Don't think it's not possible either. It's totally doable. In this area right here, I cleared this out. I'm going to plant some cedar trees that I got growing wild underneath other trees, and going to have a little clump of cedars there. And then over on this end of this area, I'm going to plant a few walnuts that I got growing wild, but just gives a little, you know, the more desirable trees a better chance to thrive without being choked out by these weed trees, I like to call them. And you can absolutely get rid of them in just one day. It's absolutely doable. In fact, I did it right here. I tore out about 6 buckthorns with my skid loader, and there's the stumps and the roots to them. I pulled them out, actually dug them out with the skid loader, and we're not going to do this on these other trees. I'm just going to cut them down, but I just had to have an area where I got rid of the roots and the stumps because I'm going to plant a number of trees in this area. I still got about 4 buckthorn bushes there that they're going to come out, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to burn up the trees I cut down around my apple and maple trees today, and I'll show you how you can turn just truckloads of freshly cut green trees. Just turn them into ash like that, where that's all that's left in a matter of 24 hours without having a big nasty pile sitting around for months or even years while you wait for it to get dry enough to burn. The key to this whole thing is you don't make a pile and start a fire. You start a fire and make a pile. Alright, so we're cutting down these scrub trees around this apple tree here. I got a few cut down. You might even be able to see it now. I got this box elder tree, and I'm going to cut this one down. Now you could just push it over or pull it out with a truck. Now a lot of you probably think, oh, you can't pull out a stump with a truck. What you do here, if you're going to pull this out or push it out or what have you, cut it tall, cut it up here, okay? You get a lot more leverage. A lot of times when I push them down the skid loader, I don't even cut them down, I just push them down. The higher I can get the bucket, the more leverage I got, and you'll generally be able to uproot a tree this size or smaller fairly easily. Once you get it tipped over, you can put the bucket underneath the roots and pick it up and pull it out. But the other thing too is you might not, that would be a good time to do it is if you want to have it in an area where you don't want to worry about stumps. You might want to mow that area or plant something. Here we're not going to be mowing or planting, so we can have a stump, but obviously we don't want to have it too big. But even here, when I cut this tree down, I'm going to cut it up here. I'm not going to cut way down there. It's just easier. It's easier to pay attention to what's happening with the tree if you cut it up there, and then once the tree's cut down, I'll cut it off really low to the ground. And on a tree this size or smaller, you don't have to worry about making relief cuts or anything. You can pretty much just cut it the way it leans and it'll fall. Although you might want to do so for practice, because the principles are the same. And if you've never cut down a tree before, you probably don't want to start with a large one. It's kind of like when I started my career in alligator wrestling. I didn't start out with the really big ones. I was going with those little ones, you know, the kind that flush down the toilet. And I could beat those ones no problem. It's the same thing with trees. Start with a small one, and you can make your clearance cuts and your back cuts. Just watch a video on that and how to fell a tree. And it's a lot better experimenting with these small ones than obviously with a big one. Now, I'm sure most of you know when you cut down a tree and you have a stump, a lot of times it's going to send up a whole bunch of these shoots, and it's actually going to look worse than before you even cut the tree down. I got a way to take care of that too, and I'll show you that next after I cut this down. Alright, I got to cut the tree down. Now what I got to do first is I got to cut off some of these small branches off it so it's easier to see what I'm doing. That easy. Now, you might want to wear safety glasses when you do this. Now, you and I both know what's going to happen. If you cut down a tree and just leave it like this, by next year, it'll just send up a bunch of shoots like that. It'll look worse than the old tree did, okay? So, to prevent it from sending up shoots, I always like to just take straight round up. And it doesn't take very much either. I just take straight round up and I just paint it on the stump, and it kills it dead. It will not send up any shoots. Probably the very outer edge is probably the most important part. That's where the real growing point of a tree is. But it'll absorb that, take it down into its roots, and then this tree won't be any problem at all. Okay? Now, I've cut down about 10 trees around here. So, it'd be really easy to lose track of where your stumps are. And by the way, when you do this, you should pretty much do it immediately after the tree's cut. But, you know, it might be inconvenient if you're cutting, if you're the only one person, you know, you're in a sawing operation, you don't want to stop and go to this. If you just leave your trees pretty close, falling down to where you cut them, that'll pretty much indicate where the stumps are. So I'm going to take care of putting Roundup on all our stumps, and we won't ever have to worry about these trees coming back again. Alright, as long as I got the chainsaw out here and I'm doing some tree work, I just thought this would be a good time to show you folks this. Isn't really related to the topic, it's something else, it's pruning, but as long as I'm talking about it. If you want to take a branch off a decent tree you want to save, okay? Don't cut it off right next to the tree. Cut it off, you know, about a foot or so out. That way, when it comes off in splinters, it's not going to hurt the tree. And then once all the weight of that branch is off, then you can make your final cut right next to the tree. And that way you won't tear off a big section of the bark, which is right underneath is the actual growing part of the tree. You don't want to damage that. The other thing too is you're going to cut from the top on a horizontal branch, but if you make a underpass, cut the bottom maybe about a third of the way through, cut about a third of the way through, up from the bottom, then cut to the top, it'll usually break right off nice and clean. And then when you only have about a foot stub, you can probably cut here maybe about 2 inches away from the edge of the tree, or 1 inch. It all depends on how much it flares out. But you don't want to be scalping right on the tree, because it's going to leave a lot more exposed area. You really only want to have area exposed as much as the diameter of this branch. You don't want as big as that base of that branch. So let me cut that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, like I said before, you don't have to make your first cut right next to the tree. Haha, that's funny, ain't it? Start out about a foot away. Cut a little bit on the bottom, and go directly above the cut you made on the bottom. It's that easy. Now there's no weight to speak of on this branch. You'll be able to cut it off without having it tear the whole tree. And there you have it. And once again, you should probably be wearing safety glasses when you use a chainsaw. All right, now, got the trees cut down. That's actually the easy part. The hard part's cleaning up the mess, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that now. All right, I got the trees cut down, and that's actually the easy part. The hard part is cleaning up the mess. And I'll show you how to take care of that right now. And the good news here is that you don't have to accurately guess exactly how much you're going to be burning on a particular day. This is kind of fly by the seat of your pants thing, and you'll be able to pretty much come back. If you got time to cut more, you can come back and cut more. But we'll start small here. If we got more time, we'll cut down some more. But you're not going to be locked into doing a certain amount. That's the good news about doing it, using this particular method. Okay, we're going to burn some trees that have been freshly cut only a few minutes ago. Now, a lot of people don't even think that's possible. And the mistake they make is they make a pile, and then they try to start a fire. Where what you got to do is you got to start a fire and then make a pile. So I always like to save my cardboard, and to start a fire, I like to use a propane torch. Works pretty slick, and then I use some scrap building materials to get things really going. So I'll light off this cardboard here, and that'll get that going. Good enough anyway. And then we're going to add several really dry firewood logs on here to get a really good hot base. Okay, what you want to do is you want to get a good hot fire started with good dry firewood logs. And once you get a good base there of hot ashes from those logs, you'll be able to burn just about anything. Now, ideally, you'd like to have your fire as close to where you cut the trees as possible. Sometimes it isn't all that practical to have a fire really close to where you cut down the trees, but obviously the closer the better. Smaller ones you can drag by hand, larger ones you can drag with your garden tractor, four-wheelers, skid loader, truck, what have you. The other thing is that try to do as little cutting as possible until you get them near the fire. I'll cut down entire trees with 12-inch diameter trunks, and I'll just drag them to where I'm going to have the fire with my truck. It sure beats making 1,000 trips carrying individual branches from where you cut the tree to where you're having your fire. So I'll drag some trees over here, and then we'll cut them up, and we'll throw them on this and pretty much watch it disappear. This ain't nothing, sports fans. I'll show you a tree. Now this here is a tree. It's getting about the limits of how much I want to drag, but I could have just as easily hooked this up to a garden tractor, skid loader, what have you. But the point is get the whole thing as close to the fire as possible, and then cut off all the limbs. That way you only made one trip instead of 1,000. Whew. Thank God it's downhill. Now what I'm going to do here is I got to cut all the branches off of this tree. I got to cut all of them in pieces about this long on both of these trees here. Now I'm not going to show you the cutting. You've seen people cut the chainsaw before. But once I get them cut up, I will show adding them to the fire. And you will be amazed how quickly they take off and how fiercely they burn, even though this is a 100% green tree. You know, the leaves are so lush yet. This is not dry wood by any stretch of the imagination. But it's going to burn like you won't believe. Alright, for all you non-believers out there who don't think you can burn green wood, just sit back and watch. You'll be amazed at what an inferno this stuff is going to go up into. These two trees, in about an hour, there won't be anything left but ash. Okay, watch as I start throwing this stuff on. I gotta save them heavier pieces to weigh it down after I get quite a few limbs on here. Forgot to cut one, but once you get a good fire going, you can kind of get away with that. Oh yeah, the other thing good about this method is you can totally control the size of the fire you want to have. If you made a big, huge brush pile over the course of the year, once you do get to the point where that thing's going to go up, it is what it is. Here, we can maintain this fire at this level, okay, without having to get any larger. And anyone with common sense would. But I'm going to throw all the stuff on right away. Alright, sports fans, there you go. Less than an hour ago, these trees were standing. In less than an hour, there really won't be anything left but a pile of smoldering ash. One last thing, sports fans. Obviously, the fire is going to burn from the inside out. So you'll be surrounded with unburnt objects on the edge. The ideal tool to use to throw your fire together is not a shovel. In fact, shovels are really crummy for that. A typical manure fork. Some people might call that a pitchfork, but it's technically a manure fork. That's the ideal tool for the job. So, if you like what you saw here, I'd appreciate it if you liked, shared, subscribed, you know, do all that stuff to make this the #1 channel on YouTube. And we'll see you again next time here on the Fix Yourself channel. Alright, sports fans, I started throwing the tree branches on this fire about 7:30, and right now it's 8:20. And this is all that's left of it. This is not much bigger now than a good-sized campfire. And aside from what we used, those dry logs we used to get things started, we didn't throw one stick of dry wood on this fire. Plus, we added about 25% more trees than I originally threw on. So it doesn't take long. And so like I said, we did the whole burning job in pretty much about an hour to get it down to this point. And you could easily burn up, a 40-foot tall tree with a 12-inch diameter trunk. You could easily burn one of those all up, with the exception of the big logs of the main trunk. But you could burn up all the brush in it easily in one afternoon. So if you ever want to cut some trees down, but you don't want to have a big pile of brush in your yard for 6-8 months while you're waiting for it to dry, this is the way to do it.